everyone. Richard Solomon, Taking Care of Business, TCBRadio.com, and on YouTube. Today's show is a really important show about Lyme disease and overcoming Lyme disease. So we've brought back Carolyn Naranjo, who was a guest many years ago, because we actually want to have an update on this incredibly brutal illness and affliction or disease. And what better person to have someone who's lived through it than to talk about it. So welcome back to the show. I hope you're feeling better.
Hi, Rich. I'm doing excellently. Thank you.
All right, so let's recap for people who may not have heard our show a long time ago. How did you come into contact with Lyme disease? Because it wasn't the typical you were in the woods in Connecticut, deer hunting,
Right.
So how
it actually was very interesting. I had gotten married January 2009, and actually January 17th. So it was just 2 days ago that we celebrated our 6th anniversary, and which is a miracle. And we're sitting on the beach, and a little sand creature came and bit my left foot. It hurt. Didn't think anything of it. The next day, I had 105 fever. I asked my husband, my brand new husband, please take me home. I was in Mexico, and I did not want to die in Mexico because you don't get 105 fever for no reason. So we came home and went right to the hospital, and, they didn't know what to do with me. I couldn't swallow. I basically went into a semi-coma. They couldn't get the fever under control. I got released. In March, they told me it must have been swine flu. I was lucky to be alive. And then the odyssey starts, Rich. I went totally downhill, lost my whole left side, lost my ability to speak. And through 2010, and my husband kept going on WebMD. We saw 40 specialists on Long Island, 40.
That's unbelievable.
Okay? And everybody did this Lyme's test, which is not an accurate test. I did a spinal tap. I did everything, and they just kept telling me, "We don't know what you have. We think you have fibromyalgia. We think you have chronic fatigue syndrome." They gave me multiple sclerosis. They gave me a stroke. Nothing fit, and there was no treatment. So I progressively lost my ability to sit up, hold my neck, balance. I gave up my law practice, turned it over to some colleagues, and there I am laying on the couch at a pretty young age, just newly married, second marriage, so I was really happy about it, and there I am, just felled for no reason, and everybody kept going back to the bug bite, but what we learned was that any bug, anything can carry Lyme disease or co-infections. And my husband finally had the infectious disease doctor put me on IV antibiotics, basically, by telling her we were not leaving her office without that prescription. And she said, "I'll give it to you, but don't darken my door again, because the CDC says, I don't know what you have, so good luck." And so, Rich, I ended up going on the IV. Had a great nurse who came, who sent me to Dr. Raxlin in Manhattan, who does a clinical diagnosis. And by this time, I have 5 pages of symptoms, and for the most part, couldn't sit in the car, any light, sound, noise, headaches. I was put on morphine for the headaches. Hospitalized 7 times between 2009 and 2011. And when I tell you that I felt like my life was over, it was over.
Was all those hospitalizations just for the pain?
Yeah, for the pain, the swelling, your organs swell. They wanted to take out the gallbladder. Not that any of these things would have helped, but they were starting to just try to make me comfortable. They discussed with my husband, that I had long-term care insurance and I should be put in a warehouse at this point to just let me peacefully become a vegetable, because I was on my way to just being a physical, mental, and emotional vegetable. And here's the thing, Rich. I knew it was happening. My mind was seeing it. And people would come to talk to me and come over and see me, and they would ask me a question, and it would take me so long to decipher what were they asking and for me to try to reply. And in that moment, as I watched people's eyes, I saw the horror in their eyes of what happened to Carolyn. Where is Carolyn?
That kind of reminds me of those episodes in documentaries where you have a soldier who's so badly wounded that he can't communicate with the people who are trying to take care of him, and they're not really sure if he's sort of comatose or not, or in shock. But he's there. He's like inside screaming, but he can't tell them what's going on.
That was me, Rich.
Yeah.
That was me. And, I had an experience once where I was in a coma and literally saw the white light when I was pregnant with my daughter and all kinds of complications 20 years ago. And, and I was sent back. And so when I was watching people with the horror in their eyes, I would be like, okay, well, where's the white light? And I'm ready, because this is not the way I want to live. My husband had to help dress me. My brand new husband. That's not good, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. I mean, you say those words and you have no idea what they really mean until it's put to the test.
Oh yeah, and it is a test, because nobody realizes the burden on caretakers out there. And there's an army, by the way, there is an army out there of caretakers, and my hats off to all those caretakers out there, whether they're taking care of elderly people or children who are not doing well, or friends or whatever. And it's a tough job, and overlooked in America as being an important job.
Yes, and the interesting thing is that he and I knew each other as colleagues for 15 years, and we were friends, just as colleague friends, and we worked together, and we go to monthly meetings, and just kind of always knew what was going on in each other's life. And until I'll have to say he had the wake up call, or he knew all along. I was a little dense, but had we not had that basis, I expected any moment in time this man would just say, okay, I didn't sign on for this. See you, bye. And he did not. He did not run for the hills.
Which shows you the exceptional depth of person that he is.
And
And
how fortunate I was.
Well, the greater lesson there is you have to pick good people to spend your life with, Yeah. Because you never know what challenges are along the way.
Absolutely.
So what helped turn this around after that point?
Once I got to Dr. Raxlin in Manhattan, and that's all he does is Lyme disease. And I literally sat in his office the first time for over 2 hours, just trying to speak. Frank came with me, and whatever part of the sentence I couldn't finish, he finished. And I must have been in his office the first time 2 hours. It's a clinical diagnosis, so every part of your being is discussed. How you move, your hands, your motor coordination, your mental, everything. It's the most amazing doctor-patient relationship. And he said, I don't need a blood test. They don't have a good one anyway. There is one that you can send out for 3 weeks. They take out antigens, and then they come back and tell you basically, what co-infection you have of the Lyme disease, because there's about 6. He said, but you have it. He said, it's in your central nervous system. And he said, the brain fog, the memory loss, my mind was like this huge piece of Swiss cheese with these gaping holes. And he said, you have it. And he said, and I can't promise you recovery. I can promise you, I've done this before, I can promise you I'll be with you every step of the way, and we'll see what works for you. And he said to me, what's your commitment? And I said, I will be back. You will meet me like I was. And so from 2010 till today, he's my doctor. Now I check in with him once every 6 months. And he has me on his YouTube video as the attorney who couldn't even get to second grade math. And I'm truly one of his miracles. And that's part of my message, Rich, about this is a test. This is a huge test. It's real. It's not in people's heads. And you can win against it.
When you had the antibiotics, did that nip anything in the bud at all, or?
Well, I was on the IV antibiotics 6 hours a day, and Dr. Axlin gives you vitamin packs and glutathione, and he tries all this stuff, and the Meprin, and all these drugs, because you can't take pills anymore because your organs are so swollen. So the only way to do it is this port that basically goes to your heart, and it's in there all the time. And you have to worry about infections getting to your heart. I mean, it's not an easy path. I mean, I know cancer patients have ports and things like that, but this is one of those things. And
as it is, I bet your immune system is highly compromised.
Oh yeah, you can't. People who couldn't come see me who had a cold. I mean, they had to stay away from me. He just said that I got through this because I did listen to him, but I did other things too. And he always told me, listen to that part of you. So I had acupuncture. I have what's called precision chiropractic, which works on the brain stem to keep the energy flowing. I had a naturopath who gave me supplements. And every step of the way, some days were good, some days were hard. Frank would set me up twice a day, 6 hours a day, just to have this drip. A lot of people could do the drip in 2 hours, 3 hours. I needed a solid 6 hours because
why?
It's too potent. Potent.
Okay.
Just too potent. And Dr. Axlin said, "Okay, if that's what you need. Okay, that's what you need."
I can't imagine that rushing it is better when it's slower. Does the job for you. I mean, everybody's different. We don't live in a one-size-fit-all medical,
That's right.
regimen. I know that the I guess big pharma and all those related industries try for their ease to have things nicely pigeonholed, but everybody's different, and everybody has just a different set of circumstances.
Yes.
We're actually almost done with our first segment. I guess what I'd like to ask you is, how did you keep up your mental stamina against the weight of so much despair?
Well, interesting. I've had a lifetime of training. I always thought of myself from my childhood as the phoenix rising from the ashes, and so I prayed a lot. And what I could do, in the beginning I could read scripture, and then when I couldn't anymore, I had friends just give me a headset, and I would just listen. I couldn't understand a lot, but I felt connected to the God source, God, and His will be done. And powerful prayer warriors. I mean, the best gift you can give anybody is when you say to them, I'm praying for you. I don't care what denomination you're from. I'm praying for you. There is a superior being, and we call it God, and He's in control, and that's the source.
All right, so with that, keep it right here on Taking Care of Business with Richard Solomon and Carolyn Naranjo. We'll be right back.
What I really need. What I really need.
Welcome back. This is Richard Solomon. The show is Taking Care of Business. Thank you for being part of my radio family, as always. I am with Carolyn Naranjo, who has survived and really overcome the different aspects of Lyme's disease. And it's the different aspects because there's the psychological as well as the medical. We were talking in pre-production, and you were telling me how people, reach out to you.
Uh-huh.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I not that I'm a public figure, but I'm an attorney in Nassau County, and I know a lot of people. I mean, I've volunteered for more organizations than I even remember. So I was pretty much out there, and people knew me either professionally or because I did some sort of charity work. And practically every 10 days or so, I get a call that says, could you talk to my friend? They have a daughter, they have a son, they have a father, they have a sister, they have a mother, somebody who can't get up, somebody who they've found no diagnosis for, and it sounds like what you had, and it sounds like, and what do we do? Where do we go? How do we handle this? And that's why I wanted to call you and Paul back and just say, I need to get back and let you know what's happened to me since the first broadcast, and to be the voice that says you need to hold on to hope.
Let's talk about that again, because just before the break, we were talking about faith and
Yes.
people praying. Now, I know that I've read
Mm-hmm.
articles that say that in scientific studies,
Mm-hmm.
people who are prayed for seem to do better than control groups where nothing external like that was going on.
Right.
So, and maybe it's just knowing that people are thinking about you and rooting for you, or there's something much higher, which is a tapping into some, force. Who knows? We'll never really know the real answer, I guess. But what do you do when you feel hopelessness? I remember I actually gave a closing statement on this. I don't like to inject too much law into the show, but I remember I did a very big trial involving a number of teachers who were exposed to enormous amounts of pesticides. It was what's called a transdermal contact. It was through their fingers, and they were mopping up what was a chemical spill with their bare hands to protect the children, and they all came down with horrendous cancers and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, wow.
And the closing remark that I made that I'll never forget was, greater than the death of flesh is the death of hope.
That's right.
And that really, and I did get that line from a science fiction show. It was from Babylon 5. I remember seeing that. I go, wow, that was, and it was just so happened. I saw that more or less on the trial. I took the notes down. And I'm like, wow, that's profound. How do you, as someone who is surrounded by darkness, find light?
Well, the greatest gift is faith, hope, and love. And for me, I had the faith, and it was hope. It was hope that got me through. And hope is an interesting word. It's assured expectation. And think about that concept, assured expectation. It's a future action. It's looking forward. It's not looking in your rearview mirror. It's not focusing on your present. It is an assured expectation. And I said to myself, if I'm going down, I'm going down with the expectation that I'm going to get well. Because look at this. What if I'm wrong? But what if I'm right? If I'm right to feel assured in the expectation that I could beat this, what's my downside? And so I hung on to that, and I just said, that just philosophically makes sense to me. I've been through trials. I've been through hell and back, and here I am in the worst fight of my life. What's it going to be? And I just made a choice. And that's what I want to tell people, and that's what I tell the people who call me all the time. Make a choice. You want this to defeat you, or are you going to pull through? I told Dr. Axelin that day, I will be back. I will be better. You will meet me the way I was.
Right. It's sort of like the old credo, failure is not an option, like
That's right.
that. So in your background as a trust and estates attorney, you must have seen some pretty catastrophic illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
How did that sit in your mind, having seen so much and seeing sort of people go way downhill and obviously not make it? How do you fight against that despair and knowledge?
Well,
what do you reach for?
We come into this world with a termination date. We have an expiration date. We come to this world, we know we're going to die. And it's how that's going to happen and what kind of attitude are you going to have about it. And I know we talked about that in this segment we were going to dedicate to a dear friend of mine who just passed away in a car accident, Pastor Al Stein. And he just knew that, absent from the body, present with the Lord, and he lived his life that he was going to make a difference every day, and every day he did. And I think that we all know we're going to die, Rich. It's just, how do you want to leave here? And yes, I did see people who suffered, but I also saw people who said, you know what? I have no regrets. I've lived a good life. I'm happy with how things worked out. I'm ready to move to the next chapter. And for me, in my despair, I said, that's how I want to go, and I am going to go gracefully if I'm going. But if I have a shot, I'm taking it. And it was not giving up. The prayer part was very important, and not just people saying they'll pray for you, but people actually getting on a phone or coming over, laying on of hands. That really works. That energy that goes from human to human, the laying on of hands. The people who call me, I say to them, everything when we're winding up, I say, let me pray for you. And I pray for their strength. I pray for their guidance. I pray for hope. I pray for them to hold on to hope, assured expectation.
And you pray for the healers to be knowledgeable.
That they go to the right doctors, that they find their way. There are healers out there. There are people, and Governor Cuomo just signed into a bill that we're not going to penalize the doctors who treat Lyme's patients because we don't have the testing. The federal government, we've got Schumer, we've got some representatives, Blumenthal down in Congress, who are trying to say, this is like the old HIV where we kept saying it doesn't exist, and it does exist, and we need to pay attention because when it gets to the chronic stage, I've been in Dr. Axelin's office where young kids are in wheelchairs. They can't hold their head up. They can't speak. They're gone. They're vegetables already. And that's because somebody listened and said, there's nothing we can do. We can't give you the antibiotics. We can't do this. And I want to say to people, listen to that voice inside of you. Keep digging, keep digging. Frank and I went to 40 specialists. We walked out 40 times, Rich, and said, nope, they're not right. Nope, we're going to keep digging.
Well, that's also an important lesson for life because too many people are told no. and then their dreams are crushed and their expectations are altered. And a lot of times you need to keep reaching, and every no is just one step closer to some different form of yes somewhere else. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Einstein, and how about Thomas Edison? He was one of my favorite. He knew 1,000 different ways how a light bulb wouldn't work.
Right. So how long was the actual infectious disease process battled? Until it reached
It's still being battled.
Until it reached a point where it was more managed than debilitating.
2012.
Okay.
It took a solid, 2009 was downhill. 10 I had the treatment, 11 I had the treatment. By mid-2012, I was back practicing law and doing. I still have to maintain. I still have to be careful of the stress level. I still have to take my vitamins. I'm not on antibiotics. I'm not on any drugs. I do acupuncture. I do chiropractic. I do check in with Dr. Raxlin. And like I say, I pray. I started a charity called Have a Hope. And I've been trying to get this web page up, and it's just kind of beyond me.
Well, there's web people out there for that.
I know. There are. And so it is called Have a Hope, and it is a not-for-profit charity because, I am an attorney, and I was able to form it. So it's valid. It's there.
Is it haveahope.org?
Yeah, it is haveahope.org, yes.
Okay. And, well, at some point, this will be posted up on YouTube, so hopefully for those people out there who are on YouTube, just click the button and hopefully it'll be there. Because for the people of the future who are listening to this as history, go to haveahope.org, because I have the assured expectation that it'll be live on the internet sometime in the future, which probably is now in history.
It is, right.
There's a Jethro Tull song that says it was a new day yesterday, but it's an old day now.
Yes, I love Jethro Tull. Cool.
So let's talk a little bit about what you think people need to do that we haven't really covered yet in terms of getting information. Maybe they don't live in areas where Lyme disease is prevalent. Or, for example, most people who live, I guess, in the New York City concrete area, concrete expanse, don't realize that you could probably get Lyme disease in Central Park.
Well, I'm going to blow your mind because there are websites and there are some studies being done, mostly in Europe, that are saying that it possibly could be a sexually transmitted disease.
Oh, that's a little.
It's a virus.
Is it a virus or is it a bacteria or both?
In the treatment of it, they call it a virus. It is caused by something called a spirochete, which is probably the most intelligent organism on the planet. And that's why they can't eradicate it. So I have Lyme disease. I will always have Lyme disease. I have spirochetes that are intelligent organisms that hide in where your vulnerable part of your body is. Sometimes it could be your joints. Sometimes it could be a certain part of your body that might have been injured. Mine happened to be in my neck because I had been injured with an overhead wire snapping many years ago, and that's where it settled with me, in the base of my neck. And with the lesions on the brain and the whole 9 yards. And so there has to be a lot of studies done. I would suggest to people they go on. The computer has been amazing. The Internet has been amazing. There's the International Lyme Disease Association. It's ILYA, it's IL, International Lymes and Affected Diseases. And then there's the Lyme Disease Association. There's so many wonderful resources out there, organizations. It's people coming together. It's people giving voice to this. It's people not accepting, no, we can't do anything about it. No, it doesn't exist. And talking to the people who have it, talking to the people who have recovered. But I will always have it, Rich. That's the thing. I will always have this. It's not going away. They can't eradicate it.
So basically, all you can hope for is dormancy.
Yes. But you stay ahead of this.
But I guess the problem is if you come under some kind of other attack, like, God forbid, pneumonia or something like that, when your body's weakened, then these things can sort of really overtake you.
Yeah, because it goes into, eventually what happens is it goes into the autoimmune area. So, but that's okay. You know, my faith, my hope.
So, according to...
challenge on.
See, I don't have a crack staff, so... Because this is a commercial-free enterprise. But we do have the internet. And according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, a spirochete is a spiral-shaped bacteria, some of which are serious pathogens for humans. So, and it's SPIROCHETE for those who are looking it up. So, has medicine found a way to deal with the spirochetes?
Only through this antibiotics, and it really has to be in a liquid form because then it gets to your bloodstream and it's easier for the rest of your organs to process it. That's been the only treatment that has gotten people through this. You know, glutathione.
What is glutathione and how does it work?
Glutathione, to my understanding, is like an amino acid. It's intended to boost your immune system. Nepron is for when you have the swelling in your joints. I didn't do well on that. There were a couple things that Dr. Axon gave me. I just said to him, "Thank you very much, but I'm not taking them." And he'd laugh and he would write in my chart, "You are compliantly non-compliant." And I said, "That's who I am." And he said, "Keep doing it. It's working."
Now, are some of these things anti-inflammatory agents?
Yes, they're supposed to be, but they don't always work. And the morphine, you know, of course, just dulled the pain that I can function. And that was a trip to be on such heavy-duty painkillers and still be in pain, terrible pain.
Wow! So, what did the morphine just kind of knock the top off of it, but left?
Yeah. It'd be like taking an aspirin for a migraine.
Right. So it kind of reduces it by a percentage, and then you still have it.
Yes.
What is the long-term consequences of taking morphine?
None of it's good.
Right.
But that's okay because I got off morphine.
Well, no, I'm not even talking about sort of the long-term, you know, I guess dependency on it, so much as the effectiveness and the fact that it maybe just, I don't know, blunts you, you know.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I needed it. I took it, and.
Oh no! You have to take things. It's just you want to be able to get better, so you get off. You want those things to be the bridge, so that as soon as you can kind of recover, because pain is debilitating and depressing to no end.
Well, they told me that I would have to get off it over a 6-month period. I refused that. Okay, I'm very, very strong-willed. Let me just say, I refused that, and I went cold turkey.
Okay, I assume they did not advise against that.
They did advise against it. It was not possible. It couldn't possibly do it. It was going to be terrible, and I said, okay. That's your truth. That's not going to be my truth. Was
it like the French Connection where Popeye Doyle had to kind of go off heroin?
Yeah, pretty much.
Where he was going through the sweats and the shakes and...
Yeah. No, it was awful. It was awful. And I was just like, okay, because I had already been through hell and I was on my way back. So how much worse was this going to be? Because now I was able to function and say... I don't want to do this anymore because they call it a rebound effect. So you need morphine for the pain, and then you're on it, and then you keep needing it, and then you need more. And it comes to a point where are you now taking it because of the pain, or are you taking it because there's some sort of rebound effect? So once I heard that, once it was explained to me, I said, well, how am I supposed to know? And they said, the only way you'll know if it's now still treating what you originally started or if this is just because it's been in your system so long. So I said, well, what's the downside? They said, you're going to be in bad shape.
Wow.
For how long? They couldn't tell me. It took about a week.
Wow. All right, this is Richard Solomon. The show is Taking Care of Business. We're zooming along on a very serious topic. We are with Carolyn Naranjo, and we're talking about overcoming Lyme disease and all the different aspects of Lyme disease, both physical and emotional. And so we'll keep it right here. We'll be right back for our last segment. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.
What I really need. What I really need.
Welcome back. Richard Solomon, Taking Care of Business, TCBRadio.com. Also on YouTube at if you go to YouTube, it's youtube.com/user/TCBRadioWCWP. And we're always happy to have your email. We get lots of requests. Our station phone number is 516-299-2683. Give us a call during business hours, and we've had some very interesting people call and ask to be guests. If you want to send us an email, TCBRadioWCWP@yahoo.com. And Carolyn, do you have an email that you'd like to share with the public out there?
Yes, it's naranjolaw@gmail.com. That's NARANJOLAW@gmail.com.
All right. So let's continue because this is a really important show and it's flying by fast.
Yes.
Let's say, well, obviously Lyme disease is very serious because it's widespread. It's all over the world. You can get it almost anywhere. It's not limited to the dense woods of the Northeast. It's not necessarily limited to places where there are just deer populations.
Right.
In pre-production, you tell me it's essentially an epidemic.
Yes.
If not an epidemic already.
Yes.
What should people be doing to take action, either as citizens, loved ones of people who have it, people who may have it, people who are battling it? What should we be talking about?
We should be talking about going to our representatives on the state level in New York State. Governor Cuomo just signed this bill. It took a good solid 10 years to get through, where the doctors, the practitioners who are diagnosing Lyme disease don't lose their medical license, and it's been very costly for the 7 doctors in Manhattan who've been prominent in this area. So that's been a great step forward. But these other organizations, they need our help to go to the federal level to get the testing. Right now, we don't have a good Lyme disease accurate test. There's too many false positives. The CDC rings in on things, but everybody saw with this Ebola scandal that the CDC really is not, the God calling all the shots here, and we have to understand that we need money, we need research, we need people to say this is real. We need to say it's not a 30-day disease, and not everybody gets a bullseye rash. It's not necessarily a tick. Whatever bit me, I was told, was a carrier. It was some sort of sand creature. It was a carrier, just like West Nile. Mosquito is a carrier for West Nile. And we don't understand all the ramifications of that. So while we're all walking around looking for ticks, it's really a clinical diagnosis. It's flu-like symptoms, it's fatigue, it's mental fog, it's joint pain. And here's the trick, Rich. A lot of times in Lymes and even in chronic Lymes, it comes and goes. So somebody can be sick for a week, think they just had the bad sniffles, the flu. 3 weeks later, it's recurring, and they can't pinpoint, what do you mean I'm tired. What do you mean I can't get out of the bed? Why do I have joint pain? And they ignore it. And then it continues in the cycle. And that's where they need to pay attention. And that's where I get the phone calls from mothers of all kinds of age, children and adults, to say, 2 weeks ago my daughter couldn't get up. A month before that she couldn't get up. And it's putting those pieces together and understanding that you can't have an illness go in and out without understanding that it could be the same illness.
Is that just the back and forth of your immune system sort of rising up and then falling and rising up and falling?
Yes, exactly. And it could be the spirochetes doing the dormancy we talked about before. I'm not going to set myself up as any kind of, scientist on this. Okay, it's what I've lived through. It's what I've learned along the way. I know that it's out there. It's chronic. When it gets chronic, people that I've spoken to who now think they might have had it for 10, 15 years, a lot of these people are applying for permanent disability, Rich. They can't work. They've lost their lives. They've lost their homes. They've lost, their way of being. They've lost who they are, because not that they weren't paying attention. It's nobody's put all these pieces together.
Well, that's the problem when you have, there's probably, I assume, more than one disease out there that has flu-like symptoms and joint pain and this and that. And why is there not more research into Lyme disease? According to what I think I read on either Wikipedia, like just right before the show, I think Lyme diseases have been around since the 1970s, I think.
It actually goes back before that. They used to call it Montauk knee out in Montauk in the 40s.
Wow.
And that was because they had a lot of the joint pains. Why? I don't know why. Lack of education. Today we are able to collect data from all over the world. Europe is so much better equipped to handle Lyme disease than America.
Why
but
is
even
that?
state to state, because they're open to the idea that you might not have a test to tell you exactly what it is. It's like when we went to law school, there was black letter law, and then there was...
then there was reality.
Yeah. Then you had to think about it and answer the law school exam. This is not, let's put it all together and bingo, there's the answer. It's a clinical analysis. And it takes training, and it takes research, and it just, right now, it's at the point where it's not a legitimate disease. If you're a female and you go to a neurologist, they start wanting to put you on antidepressants, and that's the other thing. The only two people in this state who can diagnose Lyme disease is an infectious disease doctor and a neurologist, and that has to stop. My regular physician told me that I had Lyme disease in the central nervous system, and he said, and under the law in New York State, I'm not allowed to treat you. That's ridiculous. And we need to change these laws and rules.
Yeah, we also need to be more expansive in allowing more alternative therapies to be integrated into regular medicine, but that's my opinion. Yeah.
Colombia is part of Lyme disease, and they've been doing marvelous things with just getting on the map about what it is and their facilities and treatments. But that's Manhattan. It's prevalent here in Long Island, and there's only a handful of doctors. I had a whole heart episode, and my heart specialist, he said, your heart is reacting because it's being weakened because of this disease.
Well, I know that someone I spoke to earlier in pre-production, just to kind of learn a little bit about Lyme disease, said that doctors actually heart doctors need to be aware of Lyme disease as possibly being something that afflicts the heart. So let's in the time we have left, let's talk about two major points that probably need to be discussed. The first point is, how do you prevent Lyme disease to the extent you can? And the second thing is, where are the resources that people can go to reach out to learn more about the disease process, doctors, or any patient advocacy groups, things like that?
It's called the Lyme Disease Association, and they have a website, and it will tell you exactly what you need to know, tips to prevent chronic Lyme disease. The International Lyme and Associated Disease Society, which is ILADS. Dr. Raxlin is a co-founder of that. Excellent. They're all excellent. They tell you how to prevent it. They tell you that it is chronic. They tell you what symptoms to look for. They tell you, be aware of similar conditions. Don't assume you can't have Lyme disease if you don't have a rash. Do not rely on test results. Do not take a wait-and-see approach, and know your treatment options. And, and they want you to expect success. If you go to that website, they'll tell you that they want you to expect success. And it's not a death sentence. If you don't want to accept it as a death sentence, it's not. And if it is, then go out in style with assured expectation and the hope that you can beat it.
All right. Literature, articles, other things that people, YouTube, anything. Is there anything else out there that you would point people in the right right direction for?
Yeah, Dr. Raxlin has YouTube. He has his own
How do you spell his name? How do you spell his name?
Raxlen.
Okay.
And he's Lyme's resource. And you just put in his name, it'll come up. Dr. Cavestein has Heart and Healthy. He's in Long Island, and he's Kavesteen. And
what about the chiropractic?
the chiropractor is Dr. Joanne Judd, Judd. She's out in Sayville, and she's a true healer. She is a upper cervical specialist, believing in brainstem and therapy. And I still see her regularly. And the acupuncture is Dr. Shu. He's like my Chinese brother, XU. He's in Baldwin. And
it's a lot of schlepping. You got to schlep all over.
all of it. But there was a time I couldn't drive. I mean, I love to drive, and I had to rely on everybody to take me everywhere. And then I would sit in the back seat and just mule because I couldn't take the rotation of the wheels. So I'm delighted to get in my car and drive 40 miles to see Dr. Judd.
No. I guess the greater point is it's a shame that all of these people are so far. I wish that more of this was available, just more of it locally, so that there's more access by people for this kind of help. Because unfortunately, the people who are sort of the breakthrough visionaries, we need a lot of them. We need a lot of them.
And there's Pure and Simple in Rockville Center, and they're the ones that I did with. Dr. Christie was there. Christie Weston was there, and she was a naturopath, but she's since trekked it out to California to write a book. But
for people listening in California, there's a resource.
Yeah.
For you. Yeah.
Pure and Simple is in Rockville Center, and they were the ones and still supply me with a lot of my supplements and detox foot baths, which is what I've had to do to keep ahead of this. So the detoxification process is very important. Eating right, which I always did. Okay, maybe I like a little bit of candy too much, but okay. But other than that, and I'm glad I did, because I think all of those good habits help me fight back. And I can say that there's help out there.
In terms of the supplements, not the specific ones, but what were they basically? Were they anti-inflammatories? Were they enzymes? What would you categorize
Well,
them
it
as?
was it's called a biofeedback. It's a body scan, so it's a computer that you put your hand on a cradle and it energetically picks up, and it'll tell you what organ is stressing. So when I had the problem with the gallbladder, and oftentimes because of the toxins that build up in the body, I had kidney issues. So the readout would be printed, and it would be like, okay, your organ needs a little help here, a little support here. Yes, same thing, inflammation. But also maybe minerals. I mean, I had to take a supplement of, what do they give the elderly people, like Ensure?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't digest a lot of things. I mean, anything that I tasted, I really lost my taste buds. So nothing appealed to me. So after a while, I just had to be on one of those drinks, and they were all horrible, but I needed nutrition. And so they would tell me, what would be good energetically for me. What could I take? Detox foot baths, very, very important.
Tell me about that. And we only have 3 minutes left. So
it's an ionization, so the water ionizes, and then the base of your foot has the largest pores in your body, and so what happens is they're able to pull these toxins out, and you see the water just will turn brown or black. And people don't believe in it, but I'm here to tell you I believe in it, and I have a machine at home that I have to use regularly. Again, I need to stay ahead of this.
Hey, let me tell you, there's no help like self-help.
Exactly.
And ultimately in this world, self-help will ultimately save the day.
Yes.
Because you'll always be your greatest advocate.
Yes.
And no one will have the time to put into research like you will for yourself.
Yes, that's right.
So wow, we're basically out of time. So give us your contact information and anything that you want to kind of give as guidance to anybody who's listening and needs to get that little boost of energy.
I want to tell you to pray. I want you to tell you to pray. I want you to go to your scripture, wherever you find your God, where God is. He will be there with you. You seek Him, He's there. And reach out and hope, a short expectation. And people praying, people touching, people connecting. That's the key.
All right. Your email is Naranjo Law, Naranjo Law @gmail.com.
Yes.
And the website for Lyme's disease again is
haveahope.org.
All right. So that was
thank you, Rich.
Really important information. I thank you for sharing your personal journey, your personal pain, and all your resources and all your battle scars with us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. God bless you too.
All right, thank you. And so everybody out there, we'll see you next week on the radio, and have a good week. Be safe and be careful. And thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. All right.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
What